Hello everybody, it's Foxy speaking and welcome to Foxy's Fun Inspirational Chats, and today I will be your host. This episode is episode 3. Gosh, it's been a fair amount of weeks since I did my last episode. This episode is called Strength and Survival, Part 1. And this is going to be a story because I know someone who could have been a part of Strength and Survival. But sometimes I just do not think it's talked about enough, strength and survival. But I'm going to give you a good talk on it. Right, this is going to be a story of my very late grandfather Edmund, who bless him, very sadly died in February of 2020, aged 73. Who would have actually been 74 in October, but he was 73 when he sadly died. And he could be a part of the strength and survival exception. Many years ago, because unfortunately, some of you didn't know, my late grandfather Edmund was a long-time smoker. When Edmund, because he grew up in Hampshire, near Southampton in England, of course, he was out in the streets one day as a teenager, then a 16-year-old teenager. He was out in the streets until a group of other youths came over to him and said, "Do you want a cigarette?" Just handing it out to him and said, "Do you want a cigarette?" Edmund picked up that cigarette, the person lit it for him, he smoked it. After smoking that one cigarette, Edmund got extremely hooked and attached to it, so hooked that he actually bought several more cigarettes on his way back home, and then he was just off with smoking ever since, from the age of 16. And he spent all of his college dinner money on cigarettes, forging a letter to his dinner cooks in his college saying he didn't want dinners anymore. He never told my great-grandparents about it, his parents, nor did he tell his older brother Paul, who unfortunately also died before he did. Nor did he tell him, nor his parents, and he spent all of his college lunch money on cigarettes and just skipped lunch from that moment on. But then, very, very sadly, after over 30 years of heavy smoking, Edmund suffered a severe heart attack, which required bypass surgery. So he went into hospital, he was examined, and he was told he had to be fitted with a quadruple bypass when he was only about 50, and oh my goodness. And here comes the surprising bit. And because my grandmother was so desperate for him to survive the terrible heart attack, because Edmund, he was only about 50 when he had it, so he went into hospital and underwent the bypass surgery, which back then, according to my grandmother, I only just heard about it several months ago, it was fairly rare to have a bypass surgery, so she sadly had to pay for it, the poor lady. He underwent the bypass surgery in London, in a hospital in London. It was several hours, it was quite a few hours, the surgery. He got through the surgery, but here comes the bit which may shaken some of you, and I am terribly sorry if it does. Once all the surgeons finished Edmund's bypass surgery, they accidentally damaged his esophagus, where your food comes down in your neck. They accidentally damaged his esophagus after finishing his bypass surgery, and it was deemed irreparable, very sadly. So, following his bypass surgery, Edmund couldn't swallow as well. Well, he could, but it hurt when he swallowed. So since his bypass surgery, eating and drinking just wasn't his enjoyment or in the greatest of desires or pleasures for him anymore, following the surgery and after what they did to his esophagus by mistake following bypass surgery. I mean, which is some surviving a damaged esophagus after your bypass surgery, after surviving a terrible heart attack, which he could have very easily died from, the poor man. And but despite that, the exception about Edmund after his surgery, until about 7 months before his death, after the surgery, he still took very, very long walks every day. Especially in Kent, before he moved down to Port Slade and after he moved to the Isle of Wight with my grandmother Anne. He still took long walks every day for the last 22 years of his life until about 7 months before his death. Very sadly. Because he very sadly died in February 2020. So that was the exception for Edmund, despite only eating child's portions in the last over 20 years of his life following bypass surgery. The exception about him was he managed to live on for another 20 years. I mean, he was on the death risking list for years after the heart attack and the bypass surgery, but he managed to go on for another 20 odd years. I mean, if I'd seen him in, say, last year before he died, despite going down the hill a bit, I would have expected him to live on until, say, this time next year or 2022. Or if it was, say, 2017 when he was all at the time of his 70th, I would have thought he'd go on to maybe 78 if he was lucky enough, but he didn't. No. I mean, it's some survival, and it is impressive, but also, I don't know if it's the most, I don't know how you put it, to survive a damaged esophagus after your bypass surgery and suffering a heart attack. No, but I thought I'd share this with you because I just really, in my very honest opinion, from my heart, I just don't think strength and survival is spoken about enough these days. It is certainly spoken about, but I personally just don't think it's spoken about always a great deal or enough at times, really. But I thought I'd share you this because Edmund could have been a good advert for strength and survival, despite having a terrible lifestyle habit in his younger days, which was heavy smoking 30 a day until he had a heart attack. Awful. I'm sorry, but I could have spoken about it when he just died, but I couldn't. When I lost Edmund, I was absolutely shattered. I didn't know what to do. A lot of my family were upset, and particularly Anne, my grandmother, she was sad. Edmund was only 73, like I said, when he died, which is certainly not a very old age to live to. He looked much older when he died, and certainly before he died. He really aged after turning 70, very sadly, and very sadly lost a lot of weight before he died. No, but he was such a wonderful man, and we were very close. And I have recently told told a lot of friends about him, and even some new friends about Edmund. He was just a great man, an absolutely great man, and he could have been a good advert for strength and survival, despite his terrible lifestyle habits. Sorry for repeating. Yes. And I just wanted to say thank you all very, very much for watching this episode of Foxy's Fun Inspirational Chats. I will be doing more talk about strength and survival. I just think it's an incredibly important topic to cover about, although Edmund, I know he had a few long-term issues in the latter of his life after the heart attack, but if I may say so, everybody, no matter what happens, whether it's a heart attack, sepsis, cancer, any type of disease, or COVID, which is certainly having a lot of exceptions for it right now, but nothing to joke about almost vitally, we always have the exception, and the exception is certainly not unusual. Never forget that. I mean, sorry to sound so blunt. And thank you all for watching. And if any of you want to see any photos of my late grandfather Edmund at the end of the video, I will show you a couple of photos before the end of this episode. I mean, thank you all very, very much for watching this episode of Foxy's Fun Inspirational Chats. There will be many more episodes, I promise you. I mean, it's unscheduled when I put them up, as you know, but I can promise you there will be more episodes. Certainly in the new year there will be a lot more episodes. Thank you indeed for watching, and I'll see you in the very, very next episode. Ta-ta everybody, another time. From your friend Foxy, another time.